she's in good form, despite the fact I threw it at her saying football management's precarious. And I thought, well, she's an assistant boss now as well, Davy. But it's in the blood, isn't it?
So it's such. I mean, I admire Leanne and everyone else who's prepared to go into the dugout every weekend. So much pressure now to get results. In an era where I wouldn't want to put my neck in the line for a dressing room full of footballers.
It must be tough, yeah. Can you imagine? Well, Leanne, everyone's got such an opinion, and that's a good thing.
I think it's getting tougher now, though. I think players are changing in the way that maybe even players go about their business at times. It's often easy to blame the manager and blame the tactics.
How have they changed?
Blame the supporters.
Are they more snowflake now?
I don't know if that's how I would describe it. I think that there's certainly a lot more information out there that I think players can tap into, and at times for me there's maybe too many stats, there's too many bits of information, there's too much feedback that you see on social media from certain, as we know with Hibs, there's certain aspects of the support.
Are your players on social media? Are they?
They're not too active, Davey, but I know if there's bits and pieces there, if there's podcasts kicking about that are speaking about the women's game, players hear it, it's posted online, there's maybe wee snippets, players obviously communicate at other clubs and they speak about that.
I mean, the criticism affects everyone.
It is, but then you know what football's like as well. I think we can overcomplicate it, and at the point that we start to overcomplicate it is probably where we lose our identity, and maybe Hibs have got a wee bit of that just now. What is their identity? Because they've got so many good players in that squad, but what is the reason that they haven't been delivering in their domestic league campaign? It's been very, very poor. The run of results hasn't been good enough, certainly with the money that's been spent and the budget that's there, and the players that Martin Boyle, we speak about him every week, Kevin Nisbet, good attacking players, defensively Ryan Porteous, going to be a future Scotland player. There's certainly good players within the ranks, but for whatever reason it just hasn't been working.
You looked at the stats, Davey. They've been horrendous in the league for Hibs.
Well, I know, Paul, but we're talking 9 games. They won one of their last 9 games, which is a very, very poor run. But the bigger picture, and there's no mitigation in terms of what Jack Ross did for the club last season. Come in, finish third, finish above Aberdeen, League Cup final, Scottish Cup semi-final, beat Rangers to get to the League Cup final again this year. Yeah, they've had a bad run, but I mean, talk about knee-jerk.
I think when you look at how patient Aberdeen have been, with Stephen Glass and the run of results that they had, and they stood by their manager, and they eventually seem to now have turned a corner, and there's a bit about them with the transfer window not too far away. You would expect them to go and strengthen again.
But the other thing, the other comparison with Aberdeen, Leanne, Dave Cormack came in, he sacked a terrific manager in Derek McInnes. He's brought in Stephen Glass, spent a fortune, and Aberdeen are lying 6. Derek McInnes was never out the top 4. You only sack a manager if you know you can get someone better. And I think Hibs will do very well to get someone better than Jack Ross.
And does that mean, David, do you think that Ron Gordon then has somebody in mind? Because I wonder if he has.
He must have. Listen, he's not daft.
Do you think Derek McInnes could be considered for it, Davey?
I'll tell you what, they could do a lot worse. And you threw a name at me before we come on here, Jim Goodwin. That's another one.
I think Jim would be excellent. I think he would be a really good fit for the job and the type of player that's there. Whether that's something that he would consider at this stage of the season or it's something that Hibs would be looking at, but for me I think he's a top manager as well.
He's bound to consider it. I mean, the bottom line, Hibs are a bigger club than St Mirren, undoubtedly. And I think Jim Goodwin, if he was offered, I think he would take in a minute.
And half his players went to Hibs, and it could have been even more, couldn't I? suppose that is one of the things.
I think the last transfer window, it was right up until the very last minute that a couple of the players, they didn't manage to get that deal pushed through. Some players were going in one direction, some were coming in the other, and it never happened. So I think if Jim went there'd be some players there certainly that he would be familiar with, having had them at St Mirren previously. But also I think there's a young group there as well at Hibs, and I think that's something that Jim's used to working with as well, and getting the best out of them.